What's up, guys? Welcome to this episode of the Friday Pod. This was a very interesting podcast covering three main topics. We started off talking about one of Australia's most successful entrepreneurs right now, Adrian Portelli, the man, the legend, the myth, just doing incredible things again in the Australian business landscape and just giving us a masterclass in marketing and attention. We dive into what he's done this week, which is just awesome. Full respect over there. We then talked about Bitcoin and the pump that is happening right now. And I think for many of you out there that are seeing this now going, oh my God, and you are among those stats on Google that we're seeing now, this new renewed interest in Bitcoin search and cryptocurrency searches, this is a must listen for you. This is an exciting time, but also a dangerous time if you don't know what you're doing and how to think about it. And then lastly, we talk about the Trump effect. Now, we are always careful about talking politics in this show, but this is too big a story to ignore because politics does absolutely affect business. We talk about how, here at the desk this week, we made millions of dollars between us just in the last 7 days because of the Trump effect. And we unpack how and why and relate that and to making money, creating wealth, and how it affects us here in Australia. So I think you'll find it quite interesting and hopefully challenging and supportive, no matter which side of the aisle you are politically. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoy it. If you like this sort of content, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, drop us a comment. We always read them. And as always, we appreciate your attention. Enjoy the show. What is up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Friday Pod with the boys at Unemployable. It is like old times in here. We have, most importantly, Richard back behind the dials here today. Our former employee who went to greener pastures, apparently.
Yeah, the issue is when you start teaching unemployable, he's like, fuck this, I want to be unemployable too. So he just quit on us.
Yeah, but he's kindly come back to help us out this morning. Great to have him back. And we have, of course, Eric here, who's been all along, but we've got both Mark and James back at the house today. Welcome back, gents. We missed you.
What's going on, mate?
Oh, brother. So I'm just asleep at the wheel over here.
There you go.
Look at Mark's T-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Trump. No man. What does it say?
What does it say? No man, no woman, no commie can stop him.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about this historic win today because I think it's got real implications for the Australian landscape in business. I'm doing a webinar on Wednesday, which by the time this pod comes out will have been done. But, we're going to be diving a bit into, the impact in Australia and on business people and people who think that there's no money in politics. Just look at what's gone on in the last week in the markets since that happened.
I like it's there's obviously a lot of people who aren't interested in politics, and I can tell that because I've lost hundreds and hundreds of Instagram followers, or they're just voting for the other side, right? But we're in a time in history, we're in the cyclical, arcs of history that politics touches everything. This is a populist regime. It's when the gap between rich and poor gets most wide. It's when inflation starts to ramp up. The government starts to get more control and starts to get involved in more and more things. So politics becomes mainstream. And if there's anyone out there who isn't interested in politics but does run a business or is involved in technology or anything like that, it's probably not the right time not to be interested. It's probably the time you need to be interested because it touches everything right now.
I think if you're listening to this pod, before you write off and go, politics, I come here for business. Mark, you made $1 million last week. Is that roughly or about right?
Yeah, I lost a few hundred followers, but my investment portfolio, like liquid investments, things I can sell in a heartbeat, are up about $1 million.
Well, if you look at Musk, he put in 120 million and pulled out 18 billion, so that's a pretty good arbitrage.
Yeah, in terms of his stakes in companies. But the point
and
is,
he bought X, which changes the landscape of news media across the whole world. It's like a fork in the road.
I guess the point I'm making is for the people that come to us for business and wealth creation advice, it is a mistake, and I made it myself when I was younger, to not understand at least what's happening politically, because there's huge tranches of money to be made when you understand what's going on in politics, and we'll dive into it a bit more.
Yeah, stick around, give us a chance today, because I think it'll be a good one.
Yeah. So before we jump into the biggest story in the world, which of course when we recorded this last week, as we were recording, the pollsters were out and it was happening live. We couldn't make any calls. So we'll talk a bit about it and specifically what it means here in Australia. But I think a story I'd like to kick off with is the epic story of Adrian Portelli. And maybe, Eric, you could give us the high notes of what happened there, because a lot of great lessons in this from a marketing point of view. He remains the undefeated champion of attention in Australia, and without being a sleaze bag and, like doing it the right way, without cashing in his integrity. So maybe you could tell us a bit about what happened there, Eric.
Yeah, so I haven't been watching The Block at all. I used to like watching The Block maybe, 6-7 years ago, and then it just faded out for me. But what interested me on this topic was obviously Adrian saying that it was his last one, his last block that he was going to go and bid at. And he ended up buying every single one. I think there was five. Was it five? Yeah, he ended up buying 5. And one of the things he was saying is, I guess there was 5, and then there was a bunch of amenities that came with kind of the whole development. And what he did is, if I buy all 5, he gets the amenities for free. And this is the way he was talking, right? So he outbidded everybody. And then I've noticed literally like the next day, right, from it being aired, the next day he's got the full giveaway landing page. He's got it all set up, and he's actually giving away the entire development. And I think it's either you get $8 million worth of cash, or you can get the development.
There was another one at Port Phillip Island. If you didn't like that one, he'd give you $8 million cash, and you could take that out of the portfolio because it wasn't in the same compound.
Okay.
Yeah, and then he was giving away, saying this will be the largest giveaway on the planet ever.
Yeah.
So it's just cracking rumors like that.
Was this in Melbourne, the block this time?
No, it was on Phillip Island, was it?
Or no, one of them was, but I can't remember where.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, I haven't looked too much into it, like the actual what the 5 were and all that. But it was just the media attention that he is getting from doing this. And then he posted something on his Instagram showing Google searches in Australia, whether it was yesterday or the day before, and he was the top search, over it was a Remembrance Day, so it was on the 11th, which was yesterday. And he had more searches than Remembrance Day, more searches than Melania Trump and the likes, right? So from a media point of view and actual attention and eyeballs, he's one of the best. He's one of the best at the moment doing it.
It's really funny, right? And property is probably the perfect kind of metaphor for this. Like, a lot of people will look at a property and say that property's not worth that much. That property's not worth that much, and then like. It'll be, and most properties are like that. They have like a set range, but with a development site, or the worth is in the eye of the beholder. It's in the eye of the person who can create something on that site. And usually the guy that comes in and pays the most for it is the guy that has the biggest vision, or the woman that has the biggest vision and can create the biggest thing. There's no way that anyone else in Australia probably would have valued that site at what he ended up paying for it. But because of who he is and what he does, he was able to unlock a value in that property that no one else could. And I think that is a really, really important business lesson.
I'd love to know the
eyeballs. That's what he unlocked.
Yeah.
It's like a completely different hat.
I'd love to know the figures around what he'll actually make off the back of that, in regards to how many more subscriptions that he will get, because that's a big giveaway.
The model is you pay a subscription to LMCT, which is his company. And of course, we're here talking about it, by the way, giving him even more publicity. But, people subscribe to LMCT, and then as a member, you can go in the draw. And that's how he got around the lottery laws.
It's a sweepstakes, isn't it?
But there's a big lesson here for all entrepreneurs. Hormozy Stack, we talk about it all the time. Rule number 1 is feed a starving crowd. And in my opinion, Adrian Portelli is the masterclass in selling a product that people want. It is how would you like a free house? In Australia, that is the number 1 thing that I would say most people would say, I want that. And he actually gives you a chance to have that for $25 a month.
If you ask me, like I sit there and watch some of his giveaways, right? And listen to a couple of the phone calls. And I'm like, you tell me who else has a better job in Australia than ringing someone and telling him, hey, you just won $1 million. Hey, you just won a brand new Land Cruiser with a boat on the back. Hey, you just won $8 million. Like that feeling. Tell me if that wouldn't fill you.
And not only that, his marketing strategy is that damn simple. It's genius. Like, he went around the other day in his jet, flying around all different shopping centres to Adelaide, giving away 50 grand to people who need it the most. And then there's a lineup outside Kmart or wherever it was, and everyone's got $1,000 or whatever, and they're going in there buying up their Christmas presents. Like just giving away cash to people who need it. It's like, that's the smartest marketing. Then you get the mainstream media all the television eyeballs, or the general the people who watch that crap, are the people who are going to be subscribing for that model. So it's just like fucking awesome.
What you just said there is there's genius in the simplicity. The boys on the Shamath on the All In pod was basically he made a call out to Elon Musk. He said, he goes, I've got to give Elon Musk credit for what happened recently in this election. He said, Elon Musk is renowned for being the type of guy that once he zeroes in on something, as simple as it is, he'll just obsess and become ultra dedicated to just seeing that thing through. He goes back to first principles, and he's just like, we just have to fix that one thing. So when Elon Musk realized that basically the election was going to be decided through male voters in Pennsylvania, he basically spent 2 weeks in Pennsylvania. He was on the news, he was on X, saying the same things over and over again, getting everyone out there to vote. And what politicians usually do is they try and get people to register to vote. And so they'll pay for leads, so $20 a lead or whatever, to try and get people registered to vote. Elon Musk said, the hell with paying for leads. I'm just going to give away $1 million a day to anyone who registers on this petition or whatever it is. And then he had their details, like Portelli has their details, and you can market to them. And it was just brilliance in the simplicity of the first principles, getting back to first principles.
Even more basic than that, I saw him on an interview with Tucker, and he said, I just knew the Amish people. They're not allowed to drive a bus, but they can go on a bus. He actually hired a fleet of buses and went out to all the Amish communities and actually got them on buses, took them in to register, took them home, then picked them up on the voting day. He goes, it's not that sexy, but we did it. It's old school knocking doors.
Yeah. 180,000 Amish people in Pennsylvania
on buses
registered to vote.
And it was Elon's brainstorming idea. I think it's fucking brilliant.
And back to Portelli for a sec. Another interesting thing is when you are part of his database and subscription, you also get discounts to multiple stores.
Correct.
And businesses that actually sign up, right? And yesterday he mentioned that he now has Temple & Webster. So like Temple & Webster is a pretty big deal in the whole furniture space, especially in Australia, right? So it's not like it's these small local companies. That's where he would have started, but now he's getting these big corporates on board, and whatever deals he's getting off of that, if he's just giving it back to the community and the discounts, that's amazing. But again, just even Temple the eyeballs that he's getting from these big corporate companies now.
Temple & Webster is like the Bunnings of home furnishing, right?
Yeah.
Like they've got everything, and it's online accessible.
Yeah, I don't know that they'd like that alignment.
but it's a win-win, right? Like if you're there subscribing and going, okay, I'm spending $50 a week or $100 a week or $20 a week, whatever it is, but at the same time, I'm also getting all these discounts at these stores that's paying for my subscription. So he's basically
zero sum game. Like,
exactly.
And a lot of the vendors on there, they're all real needs stuff, day-to-day stuff where people actually can get a value out of it in these tight times with inflation. So
it's not new though. Like Adrian's not the first guy to do what he did on the block. The first guy to do that was Crazy John. I don't remember when the block first came out. And it's not even new that he did on the block, because Crazy John, the mobile phone guy, he's passed away sadly now, but Crazy John, the biggest TV show in history at the time was The Block on Australian television. Nothing had got the ratings of The Block. Again, giving away houses, right? So he actually dressed up as his company mascot, the big clown, the crazy clown, and it was prime time. There was something like 3 million Australians watching that final. And he's dressed up through the auction, which was like 20 minutes of bidding. And there's this Crazy John clown.
Crazy John.
And he just got free, to buy that ad time would have been enormous. Anyway, massive props to Adrian, one of the best entrepreneurs come out of this country for a long time. Getting his McLaren lifted into it, got massive eyeball into his unit. And he really got it for the price of 5 houses that he can sell if he wanted to, or just give away.
And what I love about him as well is he is who he is, like he doesn't make up this persona. Like you get exactly what the guy believes in. Like it was funny. I think it was one of his houses got broken into, and on CCTV footage, or on his cameras, he got the footage, then somehow found out who the guy was, and literally on his Instagram found the address, went to the guy's house, like all this stuff, like basically shaming the guy for doing what he was doing, and literally called the cops to come there, all on Instagram. Everyone's following. Like it's so amusing.
There's a lot of copycats out there at the moment trying to do this whole giveaway subscription model, but I'd really love to get Adrian on the podcast, because he's such a unique individual, and the way that he's marketed that, I don't know there's a lot of people in Australia that could have pulled it off the way that he has. So I'd really love to kind of get him on the pod. And
Adrian, if you're
he's listening,
we'd love to have you on.
tell your story.
I was just doing the numbers. If he gets 100,000 new subscribers as a result of all of this massive amount of media piggybacking off the biggest TV show on television in Australia, that's $2.5 million a month.
Doesn't take long to pay off 5,000.
Yeah, if it's $25 a month and there's 100,000 new people into the funnel.
Yeah, and this is what I mean. Who cares if you pay $2.5 million more for the properties?
That's what I'm saying, right? Like, I don't know what it is. This could be wildly wrong or whatever, but at the end of the day, he's got a good model and he's executing it really well. So let's move on. There's two other areas that I want to talk about with the remaining time in the pod. Number one is Bitcoin and that market again, because it's just so hard to ignore right now. Like, my phone's starting to blow up. Anybody who's been in Bitcoin for a while, this is the time where the phones start ringing and texts start coming in like, oh, that Bitcoin thing you've been banging on about for the last 5 years, is it too late to get in? We're getting these texts. So I think that's an interesting one. And also we wanted to talk about the Trump effect. So what do you guys prefer to jump into first?
To Bitcoin, if you want, with Trump, I don't care.
Doesn't matter. Okay, let's go with Bitcoin because it'll be probably quicker.
Yeah.
For those who haven't been following the story, Trumpy got elected a week ago and Bitcoin's gone on a massive run. I think it's up 25% or something in a week. It was at high 60s in US dollars and now it's at high 80s as I go to air right now. I think it's at 88 or something like that.
Really? Wow. It's like 84 when I looked at it before.
Yeah, it's gone nuts. And the whole altcoin or shitcoin market has started to move, some of it really, really strongly as well. So, I just thought we'd open this up for a little bit of discussion. I've been in the space since 2018, which is, it doesn't sound like long, but 6 years in crypto is a long, long time. And I've been through these cycles.
You see those memes where it's like, just got into crypto 3 months ago, and you see how the guy aged from like a 20-year-old to an 80-year-old.
I guess I'll kick it off by saying this, like, I've been getting so many messages going, is it too late to get in? And I say the same thing to everybody. Go to hope.com and start your learning journey. 100 hours of learning is a basic introduction and 1,000 is a decent education. Because yes, Eric was really smart last week. He saw the conviction. He bought more Bitcoin. He's done. I've been texting him going, "Fuck you, bro!" Like, he's been here for 5 minutes and he's up like 30% or something. But it's not. It's not normal.
He's done 1 hour on Hope. He's just
he's done 1 hour.
Just listens to us on the podcast.
Which is a hack.
He just emptied out his coin trade. His work, man. He's up another fucking million.
It's like that meme, right, where you got the midwit. Right, is you got the bell curve, and then you've got the smart guy with the glasses. It's got all the rationale and all the reasons. And then you got like the really like I'm not to say dumb guy, but the average guy with the average IQ, and he's like, buy Bitcoin, number go up. And then you got the smart guy with the hoodie on the right, buy Bitcoin, number go up. Yeah. And it's like, then the guy in the middle is trying to rationalize all the shit.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, number go up.
Yeah. well, the thing is too, I surround myself with Adam quite a lot, right? And listening to what he's saying and the amount of research that he's been doing, and he sends me articles and check this out and the rest of it. So you tend to learn just off that, right? To be honest with you, I haven't went on hope.com. I'll be very honest, right? But I listen to podcasts and I listen to Adam and what he's been doing, and yourself as well, Mark. Just even the last 10, 11 months since starting this pod, we've been Bitcoin has been mentioned multiple times, even in a down market, and now we're in an up market. But the amount of money that I know that you guys have invested in this and the amount of conviction that you have towards it, and it all makes sense. And I knew that Trump was very bullish on crypto, wanting to make America the crypto capital of the world. And I had strong gut feelings just in regards to what was happening in the election that he was going to get in. So I was like, you know what, let me jump in.
I'm just sort of speaking to the other people out there, like Eric's. You're blessed because of proximity, as I am to you, right? Like, and to other people. A lot of people out there sort of don't have that proximity. And
can I give an analogy? And this is something that I saw from someone that you've studied probably more intently than me, Michael Saylor. And I posted it on my Instagram. It was about a 10-second clip where he says, most people in life will spend 40,000 hours trying to make money, but no one will go and spend 1,000 hours trying to learn how to keep it.
He even said 100. It was 100.
100?
Yeah, I just watched it.
And ultimately, what this whole thing is about is learning how to take your time and energy, because money, I believe money is your time and energy in abstract form, And so the amount of money that you have is how well you store your time and energy. The assets that I have didn't come from my income. They came from my property. They came from things that I'd bought, leverage and whatnot. So this whole game, to what you're saying, Adam, is learning the value of money and how to properly store it in an environment that we're going to be in for the next 10 to 20 years. And this is where politics comes back into it, because politics is probably the number one factor to this environment right now. And so it's learning how to store your time and energy, not give it away.
Some of those really basic principles are just so hard to learn. Like, I consider myself to be not the dumbest guy in the room and certainly not the smartest guy in the room. Every time I go to a Bitcoin video with someone like Michael Saylor or Jeff Booth or Anthony Pompliano or these other people, I come away from it feeling smarter, and I go, oh, wow, I'm just not that bright compared to these people. But I realized, even though I don't think I'm the dumbest person, I'm sort of mid, but I've just worked really hard in learning. Just the basic concept of having cash under your mattress or in your wallet is actually a liability. Like, that does not get through easily for the average person who's out there. They just don't get that. And they go, what do you mean? When I show them a chart, we'll go to ChatGPT and put in inflation at 4.5%, which I won't go into, but that's roughly, let's say it's conservatively at that. If you go, okay, I get $100 and it goes, inflation's 4.5% in 30 years, what is the $100 worth? That's worth $26. So you're losing 75% of your time and energy, because to get the money, you've had to put in time and energy, and then it just gets dissolved away. That's when you really understand that. Then you realize cash is actually a liability and you have to invest it. So where do you invest it? And you start to then look at the alternatives out.
But it's not only that, it's like talk about that conviction piece. It's like people all get the FOMO now and they're buying and buying. It's when it pulls off a bit and sits sideways for 2 years and you go, fuck, have I made the right decision? You just go, no, I just got to wait for the next 4-year cycle. I know what's going to happen again. And that's the conviction piece. And not a lot of people who are new to the marketplace will have that conviction, because they just think it's always going to go straight at bottom left, top right. Mm. And when it does pull back and does go sideways, you go, oh, is my money best elsewhere? Well, no.
My wife, she got the CoinStats app on, and it dropped down at one point in the last cycle down to 15,000 US a coin. Mm-hmm. It's now at 88 today. Now, I put a screenshot up just 2 days ago saying, hey, it's great seeing Bitcoin at 80 grand, but this was less than 2 years ago, and I have a screenshot, which because I screenshot the low prices and said it was much harder to buy it and own it here. So anyway, in short, for the people who are watching all of this unfold right now, my advice to people is always the same with Bitcoin, is that, yes, I think it's a phenomenal way to save your wealth, but not if you are needing the cash, like to live on in the next 4 years, because there is this roller coaster. But if you hang on to Bitcoin for 4 years, historically, not future facing, nobody has been underwater if they've held the Bitcoin for 4 years or more. They've always been above. Yeah. But where we are right now is we're starting to now move into new all-time highs, which means that the next cycle, when a bear market comes again, it could dip below where it is today, whereas before the floor was the old all-time high. So be aware of that, but there's a bunch of factors as to reasons that may not occur. But
can we give some numbers just in and around that to make that make a little bit more sense? So at the moment, Bitcoin is 86,000 or whatever it is, right? 88,000
USD, just for
USD. We're always talking in USD when we talk about Bitcoin on this show. But the consensus is, and if you look at the charts and you understand how to read charts in historical patterns, Bitcoin may go somewhere from 150 to 250 grand. Let's say it goes to 250 grand. In every cycle after it's made that big run up, it's dropped at least 75%. So if it drops 75% after, so if you get in now at 80, 90, 95, and it goes to 250, you're going to be feeling really, really good. But if it does what it does every cycle, it'll drop 75%, and that'll bring you back down to 75,000. And that's when the rubber meets the road, and that's when you start realizing, why did I invest in this? Is it because I had FOMO? Is it because I think it's going to be a store of value over the long term? And that's when you start making bad decisions. So having that background that we're talking about, I mean, you can just buy it, number go up and hold it and you'll make money. But if you are going to put a lot of money into it, you got to know why you're buying it. Because
I made 7 figures this week on Bitcoin, right? And I said to Cass, my wife,
where are we going for lunch?
Yeah, well, I'm not telling you to boast. I'm telling you that I got paid to wait. I got paid for my emotional intelligence in the last week, and I got paid for watching YouTube. And watching the right YouTube. It's all about education. And the only reason I have the emotional maturity and that now is because I've spent well over 1,000 hours listening to people who deeply understand the asset. It's like a Rubicon. There's so many sides to the Bitcoin story. I'm not going to speak to any of the coins because I don't know enough about them all. My attention has all been on Bitcoin. But my one word of warning to people, because I'm starting to now also get these messages, hey, Adam, I know you're a crypto guy, make sure you check this token out. That's where people lose money, because they go, oh, my friend Dave said, this thing's going to do this or that, but they don't really understand how that thing works. The only thing I really understand how it works and why people buy it is Bitcoin.
I understand how it works. I understand that it's full of hot air, and I still lost $1 million last cycle chasing that thing, because even if you do understand, human emotion sometimes gets the better of you. Greed is a powerful drug in both directions. And when that gets the better of you, you make decisions that you normally wouldn't make. So even if you understand it, one more point on it, Adam, and you probably agree with this. The people that have made the most money with Bitcoin, Tesla, Amazon, whatever successful company, have bought when it has a big sell-off. They've bought a lot, they've sat, they've waited. The next time it's gone up, it's had a big sell-off, they've bought, they've added, they've waited, and they just keep adding.
This is what's beautiful about Bitcoin. It's now got a 15, 16-year history to look at. And my simple message to people is, for a lot of people coming up, it's hard to understand because you're struggling, and every dollar you have it feels like once it's gone out of your bank account, it's gone. But I had a meeting yesterday with my accountant, and he was looking at the numbers. He's going, holy shit, bro, you were right about that Bitcoin thing, right? And MicroStrategy, MicroStrategy is my other big bet. That's up 25% overnight. But he said, because I'm at a point now where a lot of my life is allocating resources. And I go, okay, well, I just take a view that I look and go, okay, I can do first mortgage lending, which is 9% fixed, no capital growth. That's a strategy. Then over here, we've got Bitcoin. And I go, well, what's the compound annual growth rate of Bitcoin, right? Well, it's been 55% over the last 5 years and 180% over its lifetime. So ignore the lifetime number because it was super, super low when it started. But just the last 5 years, and much of that was a winter, is 55% compound. So I take a view and go, well, what does the next 10 years look like? And I've, in my brain, have said, okay, even if Bitcoin compounds at 25% or 30%, that's still 50% better than Warren Buffett, who's the best investor of all time. And that's not just slight on Warren. That's unbelievable what he's achieved. 20% compound for 60 years, whatever he's been doing it, that's legendary. So if I halve the last 5 years and look at the CAGR of, say, 25, 30%, there's just nowhere else I can put my money where all I have to do is watch YouTube videos to get deep conviction or not. And if I don't get the deep conviction after doing the work, I shouldn't be in it.
Yeah, I was about to say, where you place your money with deep conviction, it's also not run by a board or can't fuck up the financials either.
Yeah,
well, that's it. There's
limited supply.
This is another thing. That's another part of the Rubicon, which is the counterparty risk with Bitcoin. Is there is no CEO. There is
no company.
There is no counterparty risk.
Can I ask you a question? Do you think that you will keep a majority or a portion of your Bitcoin and sell some, or are you just going to keep it all? Have you thought about?
I'm keeping all of what I have now for the next 10 years. And I'll assess it in 10 years.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you're ready to ride.
That's that I'm in a little bit different position because if I sell it now, where am I going to put it?
Yeah.
Right? Where am I going to put it? I don't want to buy real estate because I don't want the phone calls of people taking a shit in the sink and have to deal with it like Eric has to do. It's a big property guy.
Classy tenants.
Yeah. No, but you know what I mean? It's about allocating. And when I look I met a guy, I was in the Bitcoin conference in Sydney a few weeks ago, and he's 100% of his wealth in Bitcoin. Now, I'm not quite ready to go there. I'm I wouldn't do that yet. But he's made his choice. So it's all about you get to that point where the constant problem is, where do you place it if you bring it back to cash? Because you know that the minute you convert it to cash, you've got a problem. And so I'm selling 2 properties, in the next few months, and all of a sudden, the minute that money hits my bank account, I'm like, I've got a ticking time bomb
melting
here.
ice cube.
It's just disappearing. And when the quantums of money get bigger, if you've got a $10 million cash position, you're losing $400,000 a year at 4%.
And we can, people obviously will go down the rabbit hole and whatever, but to put it in simple terms, the reason that we have inflation and things keep going up is because the amount of debt in the system keeps growing.
Because the government's printing.
Because the government's printing money. And
Yeah,
people
that's
are
where
taking it.
politics overlaps. And anyway, so I guess the message to everybody is, yeah, I personally think Bitcoin is an incredible opportunity, especially for young people who can't save into real estate. And the one chart that I show young people is, 10 years ago, it was 650 Bitcoin, bought one house in Brisbane. 5 years ago, it was 60 Bitcoin that buys a house in Brisbane. Today, it's 6 Bitcoin or 7 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So most assets priced against Bitcoin get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, but those are 5-year cycles. They're not 1-year cycles. And so today, one Bitcoin's 130,000 Australian dollars. Is it possible that in 5 years it'll be 1 Bitcoin to buy a house in Brisbane? Possible, very, very possible.
Can I just say one last thing as well? And this is kind of a little bit separate, but I think very relevant. A lot of, myself included, right, had a lot of negative beliefs around money. And what we're talking about with Bitcoin here, some say it's the most purest, hardest form of money that exists, right? So in order to go down this path, we have to also look at changing some of our beliefs around what money means. And that's been a big one for me. One of the most successful people that I've met, friends that I've had, she bought Bitcoin. We were talking about it. She bought it at $1,000, and every downturn she kept adding to it. And then this person went out and started a business in the medical industry, built the business, sold the business for I don't know, 4 or 5 mil. And she's the type of person that has a really, really good relationship with money. And so she doesn't make crazy decisions around money. She makes really good decisions and has done really, really well. So I think a lot of it as well, when you're going down the rabbit hole of meme coins or Bitcoin or debt or whatever, also to have a little bit of introspection and look at what your current relationship with money is, and is it serving you completely? Because I think that was a big fix for me.
Yeah. And are you really investing, or are you punter mentality?
Yeah.
Because I got a text this week from a guy, and all respect, he's listened to the pod, and he said, I'm a property guy normally, but a lazy couple of hundred, I think, and I'm throwing a Bitcoin. What do you reckon? That is not research.
Yeah.
That is a punter, right? That's a punter mentality of trying to go from 1 to 2. And I've got a very close mate who's a trader, right? And he's all about, you're up 50%, mate, sell it.
He messages me every morning, when are you selling your Tesla?
When are you selling your Bitcoin? Like if I'd listened to the guy over the long term, I'd be way behind. But I said, mate, I'm just too lazy to be you. Like you're a guy that sits up at night chain smoking.
A little bit less ADHD as well.
But he's amazing at what he does.
Smart.
So if James smoked, yeah.
I've seen the guy make $1 million in 3 days.
Right. But then you can also lose $1 million in 3 days. Whereas like I'm too lazy for that. I'd rather really do deep research and then just hold over the long term.
Sleep well at night.
Yeah, you got to look inside and see what your risk tolerance really is, because if some people made $1 million in a day and lost $1 million in a day, they wouldn't get up for weeks. They'd make, and some people make stupid decisions. The question I have for you, Mark, is with your strategy around Bitcoin, is there a certain percentage of your income or your wealth that you actually allocate to it? So for instance, if you're getting in 10 grand a month or 100 grand a month or whatever it is it like, okay, I'm putting X amount away for tax, I'm putting X amount away for GST, I'm putting X amount away for the fund, my trip fund, and I'm putting X away for Bitcoin.
That's a good point, because some people, they're like, put stuff away for tax. Like,
Yeah.
they got all their tax money in Doge.
What is tax?
Well, the reason why I ask is because it doesn't matter how much you earn, right? Whether it's $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, $1 million, it's a percentage, right? And I'm just wondering, do you play a percentage game?
100%. So when Bitcoin had gone through its big bear market and whatnot, and Adam and I were talking about property and what to sell, what to keep, what to not. Anyway, Bitcoin was at around about 20,000, and we had bottomed at 15 now in retrospect, but we started to accumulate, or I started to accumulate around that time. And I was saying to Adam, I want to get my percentage of Bitcoin up to about 10%, right? And I want to like layer in, and I was buying Bitcoin
10% of your wealth.
My net wealth. Yeah. Because that's what I'm comfortable risking.
Yep.
And I cashed in, I sold all my properties, as I've spoken about on the pod before. And the first thing that I did when I sold those properties was went and bought two other properties. Because I do gamble a little bit, and I'll go into it in a little bit more detail, but I know that the bottom of my pyramid needs to be those very steady, solid investments that aren't cash, right? And so I bought the 2 properties, and I said, okay, I want to build up my position to Bitcoin to about 10%, which will probably go to 25, 30% through the bull run, but that's when I'll trim it back down. And so I got my position. I think I ended up, because the price just took off, and I think I ended up getting it up to about 8%, and then it took off, and I couldn't get it to 10%, right? But when I had some cash from all the sales of the properties, I also said that macro trading is something that I think I want to do full time. I think it's my circle of genius more than entrepreneurship. I think I want to do it full time. So I took another up to 25, 30% of my net wealth, and I was putting it in the share market, and I started trading options, and I've started doing different things. So my Bitcoin was 10%. That's where I wanted to get that. And then I took another 20% and I said, okay, well, I'm going to look at this 20% of my funds that I'm going to trade with as like a business. This is what I want to do with my life full time. I want to trade the macro markets. So and then there was times where it started growing and I started getting uncomfortable. And so I would trim some of it, put it in my bank account, and then play with what I had left and keep that percentages down. So I was always trimming those percentages to be where I'm comfortable.
Yeah, cool. And
so yes, always looking at it.
And when you said when it was at 20,000, you started accumulating and buying. What do you actually mean by that? So were you accumulating on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis? Were you doing dollar cost averaging? And if you can explain what dollar cost averaging is.
Yeah, so basically dollar cost averaging is when you pick a certain amount of money and a certain time frame, and you just invest that same amount
regardless of the price.
Religiously. So it could be $1,000 a month, regardless of the price, you dollar cost average.
Hey guys, we recently ran a property day where we took people on the road in 2 buses and showed them 12 real estate deals. 4 of them were commercial and the rest were land subdivision deals around the Gold Coast and southern Brisbane. And this is the workbook. It's a 43-page workbook where we actually show you each and every deal, how much was paid for it, how the development was done, how much money was made, and so much more. And we've decided to give this away to anybody who's interested in this kind of thing. All you need to do is go to unemployable.com.au/2024, 2024. It'll give you an insight into what our coaching clients get when they join us in the program. It'll show you how millions of dollars were created through real estate deals right here in Australia just in the last few years, and you can get it for absolutely free. Go to unemployable.com.au/2024.
I think for most people, what I would, I'm not going to say what I'd recommend, but for most people, what probably works well is just getting a certain dollar amount and then month after month investing it in. I am of the belief, and again, I'm coming from a place where I want to do this as a full-time profession, think that you can time the markets closely enough. So when we have that 75% sell-off, that's probably a good time to put a little bit more capital in. And then as it's starting to recover, put some more in and then stop.
It's easy to say that though, right? Like the only time people buy something when it's on sale is at the fruit market, right? It's at Woolies, like, oh shit, cantaloupes on sale, let's go buy some. Or, coupons and all this type of thing, right? Like, and when you look at investing, it's totally opposite. Like I remember buying property in the GFC and people were like, you're crazy. Like I still own that property today and, it's went up, that much. But at the same time, it's like, I was a crazy one at the time that I had the conviction to go and do it. And did I invest 1,000 hours in research doing it? I was just like, no, I didn't. But I was just like, this has to come back at some point in time.
But hang on a minute. I think maybe you're being a little bit disingenuous, because I think you knew a little bit more about property than you let on. You knew enough about property to have conviction that this was the time to do it. You would have had to. I don't think you were gambling.
Yeah.
Nothing about you says that you're a gambler that would take those silly risks. So I feel like
property is a lot simpler proposition, as in we've got net immigration. People need somewhere to live. Like with something like, but your point is valid. Like it is really, really, really hard to line up and buy something that nobody wants.
I look at property right now, right? And I look at what's happening on the Gold Coast and in Brisbane and, Queensland in general. And if I'm entering into the property market now, right, and had the time, I'd be looking at Melbourne right now.
Yeah.
Right. Like now, I think with Melbourne and the property prices and what's happening, Melbourne's on sale at the moment. There's people that are struggling to sell their properties. There's people that are mortgaged to the hilt that need to get out. And this is where people can take advantage, right? But right now, it's like, oh, Melbourne's a shit market, stay away from Melbourne. But we should be thinking opposite. And in a lot of these ways, it's easy for us to say here, hey, no, where are people buying? They want to buy on the Gold Coast where it's still going up, or they want to buy in Brisbane where it's still going up. These types of areas, rather than going, okay, let me do a bit of research in Melbourne. And I was on a coaching call yesterday with a client from Melbourne that's looking to buy in Melbourne, and he's showing me multiple with prices, motivated seller. Like, you don't see that here on the Gold Coast. Like, you tell me last time you seen a realestate.com.au ad that says motivated seller needs to sell. Like, nobody has been posting that type of thing, you know, or in Melbourne you can actually.
And that comes from your conviction in the psychology, in property, and doing the work and knowing that the markets will bounce back, right? Like, people chase momentum, right? And I'm like, I was saying to Anth yesterday, who's sitting here watching, I'm like, you know, he was considering selling and buying again in Melbourne, and I agree with everything you're saying. But my advice to him was look at between Gold Coast and Brisbane, because that's forgotten. And while the prices are going up in Gold Coast and Brisbane, that area is going to do well over the next 10 years. So you can chase momentum and do well.
Yes.
But long term, that value strategy that you're talking about, I think is brilliant to be looking where people are not looking.
Yeah. See, like the psychology, it's the psychology. I'm running through it right now. And a mate of mine has been educating me on this particular stock. It's a lithium mine in the US owned by an Australian company. I bought a fair bit of stock probably about a year ago, and I just bought a lot more over the last month. And the reason why is because they just got their certificate of approval from Land Environment. The governing body for Land Environment in that area saying it's been approved, right? So I was thinking like, okay, this is going to be good, right? Like, this approval is going to be coming in place, and I bought a fair bit, and it just went the other way, right? It just went the other way. I'm like, if I just bought MicroStrategy, or I just bought Tesla at that time, I'd be looking in a lot better shape. But I'm looking at this literally, right? And this is how it's made, right? The chart, negative, red, right? Like, straight away for the human brain, it's alarm bells, right? Whereas positive, green. And so straight away, my emotional intelligence right now is like, shit. And should I sell? Is it actually going to, go to the next level of funding? And I'm just holding, right? Because again, a good mate of mine that, similar to Adam, has so much conviction in this thing, and I know how much he has invested in it and the amount of research he's done, and I'm just kind of riding on the, piggybacking on. He's like the big whale, and I'm just, those little fish that eat off the whale. I'm just kind of following him through the ocean,
This is the big problem with financial markets versus property markets, and I'll try and simplify it. Property markets are lagging indicators. They run last. So when everyone's income and the economy's boomed and everything has happened and people have money, they go and buy property, and then property runs. Financial markets are leading indicators. And the fundamentals don't even matter in the short term sometimes. It's a voting machine. What happens with financial markets is people buy all the way up until the news. They buy the rumor and then they sell the news. So the little fish, as you just said, comes in and buys that news that they just read. But by that time, all the big fish are selling into that news, right? And property versus...
And that's the difference where James was talking about counterparty risk. This is a new phrase for a lot of listeners. Counterparty risk means that in a company like that, is it a public company now or not?
It is public,
It's public, yeah. So the inside there is that there are meetings being held over expensive lunches in Sydney and Perth, and unless you're at that table, you are buying hearsay, and you're trading on hearsay, and that's what and that's why you go, okay, well, and it's fine as long as you allocate your capital based on the fact that it's hearsay. Whereas a lot of unsophisticated investors, and why the newspapers and then the governing bodies are so against financial advice, is because this advice is just based on rumor and hearsay, but they think because it's their friend, they have high trust with their friend. That's why I'm saying don't buy Bitcoin because I think it's good.
Exactly.
You have to go and do the work yourself until you deeply understand the thing. And this is what Warren Buffett talks about this all the time. Lots of people talk about this all the time. But, you know, like it's really interesting. You got to allocate based on that. And, you know, for those who are just wanting a bottom line view, and I'll give you in one view just on Bitcoin before we close this off and go to the last section here. My personal view on Bitcoin is, yes, we are now at the start of a bull run, and I don't think this is anywhere near the top for this run at all. And there's a whole bunch of hours of research as to why I believe that to be the case. And I think it's not a bad time right now to be allocating to it personally, but it's something you need to go and do the work. I'm not giving you financial advice. I think we're in for a really interesting time. And I think there's a couple of sort of very interesting, there's a lot of interesting factors this time around that are actually different to prior. And I think on a risk-adjusted basis, now is actually a better time than it was 4 years ago. 4 years ago, they were describing it as magical internet money that people bought drugs with. This year it was actually on the ballot for the US election, like this, that it was a reason to vote.
Really?
Oh, well, you know.
State?
Well, you know, I just mean, Trump's going to the Bitcoin conference in Nashville. He went there to get those votes. Like it's a political issue. The biggest, you know, we've now got the biggest ETF fund manager in the world, BlackRock, has been buying up. They actually front run all the mums and dads listening to this now who are thinking about buying. You got front run by BlackRock.
It just surpassed their gold fund.
Right, yeah. So it's bigger than their gold fund, which has been around for 20 years. The most successful ETF in history has been Bitcoin. So you've got a whole bunch of de-risking now. Gary Gensler and co in the US are going to get booted out shortly. There's going to be a whole new pro-crypto. There's a bill before US Senate right now with Senator Loomis, pro-crypto candidate, advocating for the US to build a Bitcoin treasury, which will be a standing order for the next 5 years of, I think it's 3 times the amount of Bitcoin that's actually being mined. So if it's not available from the miners and the market is going up, people don't sell in rising markets. So the bids just keep going up and up and up. We're heading for a supply squeeze here, big time. You got MicroStrategy just announced a $42 billion ATM at the money offer, $42 million US dollars to buy Bitcoin. So that's just one player, which is far, I think they said the MicroStrategy standing order is like 4 or 5 times daily issuance. That's just them. Then you've got the US government treasury. Then you've got BlackRock. Now you've got BlackRock. Now you've got Microsoft meeting in a few weeks' time to discuss whether they're going to add it to their corporate balance sheet and what's going to happen. And then you'll hear a nation state comes on and says, we're going to start adopting Bitcoin because they've seen what's happened with Bukele. And so what happens is that's when game theory kicks in, which is, oh shit, Microsoft's now allocating. It's not just this MicroStrategy, but the MicroStrategy story, since they started adopting Bitcoin as a unit of account on their balance sheet, they are the most successful stock in the world. Now, there's only so long the corporate treasuries around the world.
Japan.
Metaplanet, which started doing it a year ago. Now the number 1 stock on the Japanese exchange. There's only so long those stories can be ignored. And the other huge story coming out in January, which people are not aware of with MicroStrategy, is change in accounting laws is going to enable them to book their Bitcoin gains as profit, which is in the well over $10 billion of profit they're going to be able to book on their accounts. This is going to be the largest revision of earnings in the history of any company in the world ever, happening in Q1 next year.
Can I just put a disclaimer there? Anyone thinking about buying MicroStrategy probably still will go up a lot from between now and then, but that's already been priced in. That's
been priced in for sure, but into their stock.
Yes.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about here is the narrative so there's all there. When I said that Bitcoin is like a Swiss Army knife of stories and reasons to buy, but you really got to go do that work yourself because you will be tested on your resolve to this asset class. And the other, on the downside, just the one last thing before we close it, the downside is that these ETFs are amazing. They brought this money in, but all this money is a lot of it's new money. It's not BlackRock buying it. It's BlackRock customers buying it through the ETF. And if markets changed and they want to offboard, they can offboard at levels not seen before. But those BlackRock ETFs also have opened up huge institutional gateway, which they couldn't buy Bitcoin directly before, but now through the ETFs they can because they're regulated instrument. Anyway, so that's the bow on Bitcoin. Let's move on to the last part. It's going to be a little bit longer pod today, but I think we've got to talk about this, which is Trump and the Trump. You lead this off, the Trump effect globally, because this is a real thing.
Yeah,
it's affected the planet.
I was up at the wee hours this morning, couldn't sleep, but I was watching a cable network show on YouTube, obviously not CNN or any of the mainstream media ones, and they were just going through a raft of stuff that's happened in the Trump effect within 72 hours. They have these migrant they call them caravans. You know, a couple of thousand people moving up because it hit the border, and already one of the first caravans is half the size. People are just peeling off and heading back home immediately, and that's before he's even in power. He's still president-elect. And then you've got, this is just headline numbers I grabbed before. Hamas wants an instant end to the war with Israel. You've got Russia says it's open to negotiation now with Zelensky. You've got the EU considering replacing the Russian to US oil. So they all know what time it is. You've got the Taliban wants to start a new chapter with President Trump. And then you've got China wants a peaceful coexistence with the US, i.e. Taiwan's now off the table. That's just in 72 hours, just the firepower behind this guy. And that's before he comes in. And June 20. Do you remember last time in 2016 when he came to power, he's going to need a fucking carton of Sharpies to just sign those executive orders. Remember last time he came to sign? This time it's going to be a pile this much and he's just going to cut it to pieces.
He's not mucking around.
Not at all. So, I mean, you've got all these major wars and all this major conflict all going, all right, no, the big dog's in town, let's cut it.
But it's not this time. What's really amazing, it's not just the big dog, it's the big dogs. Yeah. Look at who he's got around him now relative to last time. Last time he stumbled into the White House not knowing really the lay of the land or what's what.
Yeah, a lot of
this
people
time he's rolled in with a massive chip on his shoulder. Like they tried everything to stop this, and he's got Elon, he's got, Sachs, he's got
Vivek, RFK, Tulsi Gabbard.
He's got some absolute weapons around him.
Yeah. Is it amazing that
Vance.
you see all the back in 2020 when he was coming back for re-election and everybody thought it was a shitstorm, he's divisive, everything like that. And all these, non-mainstream, these podcast platforms are like, I'll get this nut out of the White House. And they're like, yay, thank God he's back. It's like the big full backflip. So they've probably seen what he actually did do and how much of a shit show the country was in the last 4 years.
I just want to send a little message to I know there's a lot of listeners to this that are supporters, especially in Australia. In Australia in particular, there was a big anti-Trump sentiment, and there's a lot of people right now still reeling the fact that he won. And a lot of those people are good people. They're not like what the rights are saying. Oh,
they're not crazy.
They're not crazy.
They're reasonable people.
They're reasonable people. They just don't like Donald Trump as a human. But what we have to accept is we live in our democracy, and this vote in the US was not a minor win. Like that, he moved millions of people from the other side of the aisle over because of these policies, which he ran on policies, and unfortunately Kamala ran on vibes, and it didn't work.
To that point, it was for anyone who's unclear, it was a landslide. Donald Trump basically won all the swing states, so all of the states that have been like a toss-up. So the last couple of elections, he won them all. Donald Trump actually did better than he did in 2020 in every single state except Washington, D.C.
And Mark, he was outspent 3 or 4 to 1, right?
$1 billion to 350 billion, a million?
Yeah, three. It was outspent 3 to 1 by the Dems. And in addition to that, what's the value of the media machine that was behind the Dems all the way through, crucifying everything Donald Trump and propping up everything on Dems? That's got to be $1 trillion investment when you add up the amount of airtime they spent trying to pull this guy down.
Yep.
So he still won. And I think that's I don't like Donald Trump as a human being, but at the end of the day, you have to say, hey, the wisdom of the people.
Well, just on that, he did better in every state. He also did better with every single demographic except 65 plus and white college women. So he did better than he did in 2020 with every demographic. And the demographics that people said wouldn't vote for him, like Hispanic and Asian, increased their vote for him by a huge margin. And LA and New York, who are like the bluest cities in America, his increase in voters in those states were massive.
But mind you, this is while he had 10 felony cases against him, a rape case,
2 assassination attempts.
2 assassination attempts.
Just on that, right? Because before I was in America 4 weeks up until the election, and I came back just as the vote day was happening. And when I went in there, I want Trump to win, and I'm not going to go into the reasons or the policies on this show because it'll take forever. But I have sound reasons, I think, why I think he's a better president. Anyway, when I was speaking to people here, it feels like 70-80% of people are like, oh, no, Trump is a disaster. They're both disasters, but Trump's a bigger disaster. And so when I went over there, I thought, okay, people are probably going to think the same thing. They're probably going to think this guy's a disaster. So I straight away started talking to as many people I can about politics. I love politics. It's passion. People say I don't talk about politics, but I'm passionate about it. So I love talking about it. And I do it, I hope, in a way that's non-confrontational. And all the people that were voting for Trump were saying that they were voting for Trump because of his policies. They were going through the policy that was most important to them: inflation, prices, borders, safety. Everyone had their own policy that was their favourite. Everyone who said they're voting for Kamala basically came back to, oh, you can't vote for Trump. But why are you voting for Kamala? I don't know if she has sound policies.
You managed to find a few, did you?
She said, yeah, I did. I found a few. For friends of mine as well. You just can't vote for Trump. And the best that people had, and I'm not going to go into abortion, but abortion was a big one. And, you can't deport illegal immigrants. That they were the two things policy-wise that they were motivated by, but the main thing was something. It was more against Trump.
Identity politics.
It was more against Trump
yeah.
versus actual.
Bring it back to Australia. Like we in Australia, I myself learned a couple of things going into it. Like I had dinner with a very dear friend of mine, and she's was a full Kamala, still probably is, and she was shocked that I thought that Donald would win, which
yes.
just speaks to the fact that we all do live in our echo chambers. But I published, who do you think will win on my Instagram stories, Trump or Kamala, and then Trump wins. I didn't actually go pro-Trump, or because people who watch and know me know I don't like the guy, but I did think he was a better president. I lost hundreds of followers on election day. Just went boom. As soon as I put that one, who do you think won thing up. And then I posted a few days later a Pauline Hanson cartoon.
The best video.
Now,
everyone should watch that video.
Yeah, it's a cracking
So
thing
good.
About Albo and how left Australia has become. Now, I was genuinely nervous about posting a Pauline Hanson video because I know the stigma that comes along with it. But I posted it because in my mind, it was absolutely bang on politically what I believe is wrong with the country. Like it's the cartoon starts out with Albo and it says, hey, did you get the virtue signal? And anyway, it goes on about how left Australia has become and all our woke politics.
Trying to smash the bastion of free speech.
Yeah, and now they're attacking the bastion of free speech, which for me is a huge, huge problem when we start having our free speech taken away from us with this disastrous disinformation bill that they're proposing.
Banning social media for under 16-year-olds because parents can't make those decisions.
Yeah. So I posted that and it went crazy on my Instagram. And I looked at the comments going, oh my God, like some of my friends were like, oh, that was a brave move. Pauline Hanson, are you sure? And the comments, I think there was one or two mildly negative comments and hundreds of, this is the best thing ever. Thank you for, and it says to me that I think Australia, I think we're going to see the similar thing next year in our election. I think it's Liberals here to election to lose, even though a lot of people don't like Liberal leadership. I think it's going to be a very similar thing because they just keep going down that road, which has just been proven in the US to not work. And I don't think Australia is that dissimilar. I think there's a huge undertone of massive dissatisfaction.
I posted an article in our private WhatsApp group about the correlation between the US and Australia, and again, it was probably more right wing that was posting the article on Sky, but the overlay was pretty identical, wasn't it? We were just done with this woke bullshit.
Done with it.
I'll tell you a funny comment I heard on. I was just listening to a pod on the way up here, and it was a Hamosi talking about, we talked about a message about a female. Don't give an analogy of a football player. And he goes, "Fuck, oh, yeah, that was woke. Go get fucked." So I said, "Yes, I'm being generous. Go get fucked." And he kept going just it's now starting to follow through and everything. They're just over it.
I reposted that video that you posted. I remixed it, and it was my most shared post ever.
Yes,
so
that Pauline Hanson
video. There is a I don't want to use the word awakening because it's wokeism that's kind of dying, but there is this
there's a definite frustration
that is, and people are, and to your point, you said the people who wanted Kamala to win couldn't understand how she didn't. But it was quite obvious. Like I was going around telling everyone it's going to be a landslide because there's four things to look at: betting markets, financial markets, podcast views, and meme likes. people say that's an echo chamber.
Betting markets have picked it 10 out of the last.
People say that's an echo chamber, but it's not. It's showing you what's actually happening on the street. And if you are shocked and thought, Jesus, how did Kamala win? I think you need to be questioning where you're getting your news sources from.
Well, that was the big story out of this, is that I think one of the big stories is that mainstream media has lost all credibility on the back of this. I was on election night watching the lives, and I watched CBS, PBS, I watched all the major channels, CNN, both sides of the aisle, and none of them were beating Patrick Bet-David's live stream, and he's a YouTuber, right-wing YouTuber out of Florida. He had more people live streaming watching him than any of the other major networks, and he's a YouTuber. So there's a lot of the celebrity vote doesn't mean shit anymore. Yeah. But this stuff in Australia, I just want to bring it back to Australia. I think Australians are going to follow suit here. I made my first political donation to Pauline Hanson's defence fund because of her getting in trouble for that tweet where a Pakistani politician here in Australia, when the Queen died, she put out a post, well, I find it very hard to feel sorry for somebody who built their empire on slavery and murder and blah, 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 blah. And then Pauline Hanson said, well, if you don't like Australia, then fuck off back to Pakistan. Now, that is a horrible thing to say, and it probably is racist, and it doesn't really have a place in politics and so on. And you can't defend it. Like, it's a horrible thing to say, right? Pakistanis come to Australia, they work really hard. So do Indians, so do anybody who comes here legally and works hard, I'm all for it, right?
My grandparents?
Yeah, totally. So what Pauline said was horrible. That Pakistani minister took her to court and won, and she has to remove it, so she can't say that. It's now been taken down. But that and that is wrong, in my opinion. We need to, like, it in a way, it kind of identifies Pauline as somebody who says shit like that. And if you're running for office and you're trying to make a decision, as an Australian, you should know. She says shit like that. But you know what? So does everybody else. You think the Pakistanis don't say racist shit? You think Australians don't? We all say racist shit at some point.
I mean, racist stuff aside, though, the true test of free speech is being able to protect the opinions of those you disagree with.
Right. And I disagree with what she said. But I also, James, you were going to say something.
I was just going to say, well, that's all one thing. The ultimate penalty or reward will be when the vote comes in.
Correct.
Yeah.
Let people make their own fucking decision.
Exactly. Don't tie our courts up with, we need to go, in my opinion, if you value free speech, go to One Nation, donate $20 or $50 or whatever you can afford to help Pauline appeal this, because she has been the martyr for so many Australian views throughout her life, and she's been vilified and victimised, and she speaks her mind. And frankly, I'm not saying I would vote One Nation or what, I don't know yet. That's not what I'm up for discussion. What I'm up for discussion is free speech something important to you? And if it is, defend the person they've used it against as a sacrificial goat.
One of the most important things for me bringing up little kids or bringing up Frankie is trying to teach Frankie how to be an objective thinker, how to teach Frankie to be able to look at what is being said or what not, and to be able to form her opinion on what that means. We can't do that if free speech doesn't exist. God bless America, right? Because even though 90% of the news media was pounding this one guy for years, 8 years, they're pounding this one guy, lies, bullshit, hoaxes, America still found a way to go and get their news, objective news and information. Could you imagine if podcasting and all these different things weren't out there? We're just supposed to accept them. How do we ever question what's good for us, what's being fed to us? We have to be able to...
That's what I'm laughing about, is the irony of the government proposing, free speech.
That's where Trump's come in, again, not Australia's centric, but he came in, he's doing these policy implementation plans, and one of them was going to be a censorship ban. If any of the mainstream media seem to be censoring or suppressing anything, it'd be fucking huge.
Do you want me to tell you
how good would that be?
Do you want me to...
He just said, he went on a full-on rant, like he's nearly spitting about it because he's been fucked by them for so many years. But anything that's been said to be censored or suppressed, big major corporate fine.
You want to know the kicker to that?
Sure.
I saw those and I thought, geez, he's getting on the attack. He's won and he's putting all these videos out. those videos were created between 2021 and 2023 when he was banned from all social media platforms and had to put them onto Truth, and now they're resurfacing.
It's interesting.
That's the irony.
But you are right. I mean, we do. It would be amazing if we could trust our media again, but nobody trusts the media.
People
For
don't.
good reason.
The issue is people don't have the confidence to preach their own beliefs anymore. And that's why I'm raising my kids with confidence to go, you know what, speak your mind. And that's okay, because the reality is this. What was the vote like in Trump? It was a landslide, but it's still what, 54% to 46% or whatever that is, right? So half the population still don't like him, as an example, that he's now got to go in there and prove and basically, do what he's going to say. And the reality is, when you're posting this stuff, right, and you're posting certain things and I'm posting certain things, still in the back of my mind, I still think, shit, should I post that or should I say that, or am I going to be judged, or am I going to lose followers, and that is the issue, right? The issue is us second guessing ourselves, going, I'm not going to post that because it's going to piss off these people. The reality is you'll piss off half the people anyways, because half the people are going to agree with you and half the people aren't going to agree with you. And if you don't have the confidence to accept that, to walk down the street and somebody look at you and that you put your face out there and said something wrong, and they can, oh, you're that guy. You need the confidence to be like, yeah, I'm that guy and I'm okay with it, or I'm that woman and I'm okay with it. And right now, confidence is at its lowest levels, because people, this woke era has made people so scared to speak up in what they believe in, whether it's religion, whether it's politics, whether it's business views, whether it's pro-man, pro-woman, whatever it is, right? And to me, that is a major, major issue. And I'm raising my kids every day to be confident in themselves and be confident in what they believe in, because my wife, right, is very outspoken and has been for a long time. And all the shit that she's been outspoken about, right, for many years, that friendships have been lost and judgments have been passed, everyone is fucking agreeing to it now.
Yeah.
Right? There's been a full swing, right? And it's like, you know what? And you go on her Instagram as an example, and on her Instagram, it says who she is, what I believe in, and,
We have a few friendly jousts, Jen and I, with
but she loves it, right? Like, she speaks so highly of Adam and back and forth, because you need to respect the belief, right?
I respect Jen's opinions, and so we've had some good ones, but she's a great example. I almost posted a dialogue between us the other day because she said, I disagree with that, what I just posted, right? And I'm like, that's cool. Like, and we can have that back and forward. And I've got a couple of friends in that situation, but you are right. And it speaks to why, like, how brave what Elon did. That's brave. Like, he had a lot to lose. The Rock went to Patrick Bet-David's Vault conference this year. He is famous for being Switzerland when it comes to politics. He never talks about it. It's secret, right? Because he's got hundreds of millions of followers, and he knows that if he says Trump, he risks, literally 150 million followers, for example, just going, yeah, no, I don't agree, I'm out. And that is a lot of money to a guy like that. So when you see important people with a huge followings and massive businesses putting it out there on the line, that is a lesson in bravery.
We have to get to a place where, I'm hearing some ridiculous stories that Christmas was cancelled because someone voted for Trump or whatnot. It's like, we have to get to a place where people can have an opinion again. And it's going to start with, in our country as well, it's going to start with podcasters, business people, politicians as well, speaking up for the things that they believe in, because we've just gone so far the other way.
Mike, we have to make space to disagree again.
Yes, and if there's anyone out there that disagrees with anything we say with relation to business, politics, Trump, or wants to come and talk the other side, come on the podcast.
For an example,
come on the pod.
Like Jen, I posted about the social media ban for under 16s, and Jen was like, well, I actually agree with that. And I'm like, your wife agreeing with a Labor politician, like, that's something, right? But I can sit there and yeah, she disagrees. She's got girls and she doesn't want them seeing social media, right?
And we're seeing the effects of it in real time.
Every Australian parent would agree.
But also, having the right to disagree without then going writing about it as well. Way back when they were talking about politics, when the left didn't agree with the right, they'd still go for a long lunch of beers and wine and talk about it and whatever. Right now, the left don't even talk to the right. There's a fucking right every time there's a disagreement.
Back in the day, you go, you bloody lefty prick, and now you'd barely get sued. Free speech. You can't call me a lefty prick. Like, it's just, we've just gone so soft. But there are always sides to these things. And I love going to dinners with my friends that disagree with me, so because we can have that civil debate and have a laugh and then go on with life. But when you can't have a healthy debate, you got to watch your words. We turn into this crazy world of weakness and
I turn it back to business, right? How many disagreements do you have in business, whether it's with business partners or whether it's with your own partner, or whether it's through like the business coaching we do, right? Like we literally have to tell people, hey, that idea is not amazing. And then you have to battle it, right? And they're paying you for this type of advice. And we have to get comfortable with it again. And right now, I'm a big believer, like I said before, no one's comfortable, right? Mark, you're not comfortable with losing 500 followers. Somewhere deep down inside, that would have affected you emotionally somewhere, going, fuck, right? I take so much time, right? And you, Adam, right? You guys take so much time, right? Building up these followings, right? To then go backwards because of one topic that somebody doesn't agree. It pisses you off. It'll piss you off, right? But the thing is, move on. Don't get too emotional about it, and still post what you believe in. Don't post things that everybody believes in because you want to have 100,000 followers because you know it's going to make you more money. Fuck that, right? It's not about the money. Just like what Adam said, the reason why these big stars will not post certain controversial things is because it'll affect their back pocket in a massive way, right? And unfortunately, people choose that over their own beliefs and what they believe.
Well, I posted something on Instagram and you commented, you said, I love that. It was like, seeing the amount of unfollows during election season has been eye-opening. If your side doesn't win, or if you see something that you don't agree with online for that matter, stick around, replace the anger with curiosity, approach every disappointment with that mindset and watch how life changes. Like, I only think that we can go to a better place for civilization, for humans, if we can if we can replace anger or disagreement with curiosity.
Be curious. I like that.
Guys, that's a wrap for this week. Pretty good on time, not too far over. I hope you guys found this helpful at home. We do always, before we start the pod, sit and ask ourselves, what can we talk about this week that's going to add value? And I know today was very, very political, but as we said at the start, politics and business and wealth creation are absolutely intrinsically linked, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. You've only got to look at the markets this week and the money that's been made by people this week who did the research and got into the right things at the right time based on, qualified, educated guesses about where things are going to go. So, learn. Your greatest weapon against mediocrity, inflation. It is tough building wealth when the ground is falling away from beneath your feet with rising inflation and all the other stuff. The only counter to it, guys, is education. And the good news is, now more than any other time in history, the access to quality education has never been so profoundly powerful and accessible. So, go and listen to more things that educate you. When you walk away from a pod, ask yourself, do I feel smarter as a result of listening to what I just listened to? And if you do, then you're probably in a good place. And if you don't feel challenged and you don't feel smarter, it's time to flick over to some other channels and find what challenges and moves you. So with that said, we, as always, wish you all the best with your journey, no matter which side of this. If you were a Kamala supporter and you're still heartbroken, we do genuinely empathize with you, because we know what that can feel like. But it will move on, because I know this is definitely hits hard for people. But we're onto a new chapter, guys, and no politician, whoever gets elected, is going to make you rich anyway. You've still got to do the work yourself. There's no getting around it. That being said, guys, we'll see you on next week's pod. Boys, thanks for coming in again and for sharing your thoughts, and we'll see you all soon. Bye for now.
Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that episode of Unemployable. If you'd like to watch another episode, just click there.